Is Brian here? Hello. I didn't see you. Okay. Okay, so while we're getting ready, let's settle in. Really find your one thing that helps when you're coming into a new activity or a new environment or a new anything is to kind of just take a moment to center yourself here. So you kind of like, so we have the advantage because it's okay to close your eyes and center yourself. So, but one way to do that is to bring your attention for a moment to just your body sitting here. Noticing the temperature of the room on your skin, the sensation of the chair, the cushion on your legs, and allowing yourself to settle here, to feel kind of rooted here. And to keep us from feeling heavy, we don't need to be so grounded that we're ready to take a nap. It's also good to think of our mind, the expansiveness of the mind, its ability in any moment to, include within its thoughts vast things like the whole Milky Way. We can picture that easily. We can travel to Hawaii. Our mind has no physical boundaries. It's as expansive as the sky, as the space behind the sky. So we can feel rooted on the earth by the sensations of our body sitting here, but also feel uplifted by the spaciousness of the mind. And you can scan your body with your mind, looking for any spots of tension, and allowing your breath to soften those spots. Soften the face, the neck, and the shoulders. Knowing that you chose to be here, there's no place else you need to be. And try to generate a positive motivation for spending your time here this morning. An intention to use the time well. Take a few belly breaths. Let the breath expand your chest, further easing any spots of tension. And when you're ready, just open your eyes and find a prayer book. and share one if you need to. So we're just going to recite the form measurables on page 34. So the four measurables refers to four measurable states of mind. The measurable mind of love, compassion, joy, and equanimity. Because our mind has no physical boundaries, we can cultivate it to include all living beings. A lot of practice, perhaps. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings be inseparable from the happiness that is free from suffering. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from attachment for friends and hatred for enemies. So this is just, Lamazopa Rinpoche, who's the spiritual director of all these FPNP centers around the world, way to help us kind of shift our worries from just ourselves to try to, expand a little bit. Thinking, oh, I'm not the only one who's struggling or, having some challenges. There's a whole world, of living beings that also has these difficulties. So I don't want to just do my practices or just even, whatever spiritual journey you're on just for myself, but you want to do it in such a way that you hope that it will be a benefit to others around you. And we all know that when we're in a peaceful, contented place, that energy alone usually helps the people around us. Even if they're greatly suffering, just having you be able to hold that space, with their suffering is, a gift that we can give to others. So, but we have to cultivate that ability. So that's why we're here. That's why I'm here, to keep cultivating that heart that stays open and doesn't go straight to, but what about me? But so in Buddhism, it's taught that there are three attitudes of mind, or states of mind, not really attitudes of mind, but states of mind, three categories, because there are lots, of course, states of mind that fit into these three main categories. But these three categories are considered to be really problematic, so much so they're called the three poisons. So the three poisonous minds, as opposed to the four measurable minds. So the three poisons are attachment, anger, and ignorance. So ignorance is just the mind that is unknowing, that it doesn't really understand that the way things exist. So we kind of start from a slightly distorted place. All our thoughts are grounded in this idea that, that things exist a certain way that they do not. Then we have hatred or anger. And this is a very intense form. Like, we may use the word anger really kind of lightly in our language. But this anger is the kind that's reached the point of intensity where you just cannot tolerate the source of that anger and you want to harm it. So it's a heavy kind of anger. And then attachment. Attachment is how we distort love. So love's a wonderful quality, but attachment is this clinging addition that we bring to objects of affection, whether it's chocolate cake or a person, that we exaggerate the good qualities of an object and think that it holds the answer to our happiness, in any given moment. And we get And we feel like we have to hold on to it tightly so we don't lose it, because after all, it's our source of happiness. And so these three attitudes they distort the way things appear to us. And so coming from this misunderstanding, this incorrect distortion, means the moments of mind that follow that, or our actions of speech and body that follow that, are being led by a misunderstanding. So attachment in English, in normal English, doesn't really have that kind of connotation, does it? I mean, I don't know. I've been studying Buddhism so long, I can't even remember what attachment means in a regular dictionary. But in this tradition, it's a clinging. And they like to use the example of like when you spill oil onto a cloth, and you know how it just keeps getting like bigger and bigger, saturates the cloth. How hard it is to get out, because it just kind of takes over. So it's like when you first become infatuated with someone, if you can remember that far back, perhaps, or maybe it was yesterday. But you know how that it's just like everything seems sweet. Doesn't matter what the weather is. It's a nice day. It doesn't matter. As long as you can see the object of your infatuation, everything's going to be okay. Now, if you can't see them, then maybe it's a phone call. But, you're able to, keep that contact. This is very important when we're distorting the picture. We have to cling a little bit. So, because what happens as soon as we're kind of separated? What kind of minds arise? Fearful. Fear of what? Losing it. Oh no. They're late. They're 5 minutes late. Oh no. So attachment is it's like you couldn't ask for a better condition for troubles to arise. Worry arises. Fear of loss arises. This need to latch on and try to control the object so that you can't lose it. So, it's always within sight. Anybody ever have an addiction? I smoked cigarettes for, I don't know, a long time, 20 years. It's like, did I ever not have a carton of cigarettes in my house? No. It was a cause for great concern if I was on that last pack and didn't remember to stop for a carton, because the next morning was going to be dreadful. So it's just, this is what attachment does. It has this, my happiness lives in that object. It contains it. And if I don't have it, I can't be happy. Well, that's just, like a recipe for disaster. So we need to work on that. This is something we want to try to separate affection from attachment. Or liking, from attachment. And this is not the easiest thing in the world to do. So let's look at some different of the points. Okay, so like the fear of losing. How can we counter the fear of losing an object of attachment?
The fact that you're going to lose it anyways.
Okay, that's one place to start. The reality is we will lose everything at some point. even if we have a really, great situation, we have lots of resources, we have loving family and friends, and no one seems to get sick, and just goes really swimmingly in our lives. What happens?
I,
You die. You lose it all, all at once. Okay. Now, probably no one actually has that kind of situation. So even though they have good resources, good health, good environment that they live in, whatever all those things are, there are ups and downs because that's just the nature of this existence. So no one even has it that good. And you still lose everything. So what can happen at that, when you're sitting there, the doctor has just sent you on your way and it's gone, sorry, there's nothing I can do for you. What does that fear of loss do? What does that attachment do? Do we think much about these issues? Or do we avoid them?
makes a bad situation worse.
Depression.
I worked when I was first got out of high school. I worked I was a nurse's aide. I thought, oh, medicine looks good. Let's see what it's really like. So I worked. See, I didn't become a doctor. Yep. I didn't become a nurse. I knew, okay, no. So, but what they often do is with new, I was 18 years old, so with new nurses' aides, they put you on a terminal ward because you can't do a whole lot of harm, I guess. I don't know. But anyway, so you work with, you're going to lose all the patients eventually, So, but you see them at different points. So you might see someone for their first hospitalization when they've been diagnosed and they're having some treatment. And of course, this was 40 years ago, more than 40 years ago. So, of course, everything's changed with the treatment. But at the time, so you saw people who just really found out because they were sick or something was wrong. So they went to the hospital and this was the test results. And you also saw people who are at the end of their journey and they've gone through all the treatments and they're finally, and they're not able to stay at home. And so they're back in the hospital. So you see quite a wide range of minds. People who are in shock, stunned, people who are a little past the shock stage and are grieving for all those losses. And then the worry stage, the anger stage. They're just, lots of stages. And then the people who've kind of gone, oh, please, sneak me a pack of cigarettes in because what difference does that make stage? So it's quite an interesting, it was actually a great job. It was because you just saw
amazing qualities. Hello. Batteries, please. See, impermanence. It happens kind of all the time. So we just want to understand it's all taped together. She says in a critical form. Oh, it's sad. Oh, sad. Okay, so turn it off while you're doing that. Okay, so it is. So the point of this is that if we're not able to let go, it causes us great suffering. If we're not able to recognize, there's a point at which we have to let go. Oh, it sounds completely different than your own voice sounds. It's weird. So, but you have to, so this, really recognizing this habit of not just liking something or loving something. We go beyond that to really thinking that we have to have it
in order to be content or happy or peaceful. What's wrong with the logic of that? I mean, attachment's really not logical. So what's one of the errors of thinking?
Another one is it assumes that there's a permanent me to which that object
It assumes there's a permanent me to which that object belongs. Oh, it's my love. Yes, that's one problem. Is all of a sudden it's yours. So what happens when the object of your affection decides you're no longer their object of affection? Disaster. We become unhappy. Okay, fair enough. But also we can really no longer want them to be happy. So now we've shifted from this desire for them to be happy, this object of affection, to kind of hoping they suffer. Because we think that they're mine, And so if you're not happy with me, then I don't care if you're happy or not, until later. I mean, if you're raising kids with somebody, they're in your life for forever. And so, hopefully you get through that phase of kind of hoping they're miserable. So we can change. But if we didn't start with this assumption that things that have become what we consider mine to be permanent, unchanging, always going to make us happy, always going to be, we're not deliriously crazy, thinking that, they might, not say anything ever that disappoints. We're not completely delusional. We're just partially delusional. We really think that these things should stay the same exactly as that first moment when you realize, wow, this person makes me happy. What is happiness in terms of, it's a state of mind. You can call it an emotion, but that's still a type of mind. It's a state of mind. Mind and heart are the same word in Buddhism, in all Asian languages. I just recently found out. I know it's true in Tibetan, but I just found out that's true in all Asian languages. So whether you think of it as reasoning or emotions, they're states of mind. I got lost.
What is happiness?
What is happiness?
Okay, so happiness is a state of mind. So it's an internal process. It's an internal state. So external objects, thinking that our happiness actually lives in someone else, it's an error in judgment. It actually doesn't live in someone else. It's not an ingredient. My happiness is part of their cell structure, It's an internal response. So whatever happens out here doesn't have to impact what happens in here.
Where internally is it?
Good luck finding it. So in Buddhism, it said that the mind is not the brain. The brain is a really important support for the mind because our minds are vastly more clever than a mosquito's mind because we have a really good physical support and the poor mosquito does not. So we have some ability to observe our mind, to recognize, oh, this isn't a very skillful habit I'm developing here. Then to kind of go, maybe I want to change it and actually find some information on how to change it and then actually implement the change. We're really amazing, because we have this wonderful physical support for our mind. But we have to look and see if what we're doing is skillful or not. Yeah, Pat.
I think happiness for me is accepting reality for its face value.
Yeah, I mean, so happiness has a lots of different connotations to us. Contentment. And when we talk about like, the happiness in Buddhism is really about seeking a lasting happiness that has nothing to do with what's external to us. So it's not the happiness you get from a first kiss. It's not the happiness you get from a bite of chocolate cake. It's not the happiness that you get when you just run a marathon, well, maybe not a marathon. Whatever that, that a sprint, when so that whatever the body does, but so anyway, it's about this more to me, words like meaningful, fulfillment, satisfying, contented, those kinds of words. I don't think we can really describe what happiness is in an everlasting way until we experience it. It's something that we're not quite, but we do have a sense of, when we feel personally satisfied, not just, that our tummy's full, but we feel like this was a good day. Or am I wrong? Do people have a sense of that? Okay. And I think that's what we seek more of, is to have at the end of the day, feeling that kind of contentment and various things. What gets in the way of that are things like putting like all your hopes and dreams into something externally to you that you have no control over. So what happens when you meet misfortune of your loved one getting killed in a car wreck on the way home? And so they're gone. Now, Buddhism doesn't even pretend to say that you're not going to have any loss. Of course you have loss. The goal is not to not feel loss, but it's to recognize that this suffering you're experiencing, the heartache, that will change. Sort of like the good news is you can feel the loss. The good news is also it will change. You were happy before this person was in your life. You'll be happy in the future. You'll get your equilibrium back. But it's a difference between being devastated or thinking that, or kind of allowing yourself to be devastated forever because you really feel like your happiness died with the person, that there's no chance. And that's the attitude that can be so toxic. Yes.
And I guess what it also makes me think about is the internal negative states of mind. That maybe it's not an external object, but to your point, yes, that creates a lot of disturbance in the mind. But what you're talking about today, the ignorance, aversion, and attachment that create these like swarms of negativity.
Right.
Like, just like this buzzing of negativity that adds to the discontent and unfulfillment.
Constantly.
Constantly.
See, this is the thing, is that when we start to observe what's going on our mind and on whatever, we notice this pull that we have all through time, all through the day. It's this constant desire towards something we want or away from something we don't want. They're trying to fix it. It's in the simplest way. It's like when you change the temperature of the air condition, and then you change it again, and then you change it again, and then you change it again. What does that tell you? when you spend your entire drive somewhere changing the temperature in your car? What does it tell you about your mind?
Never
It's disturbed.
It's disturbed. It's unsatisfied. It's not comfortable. Because if you didn't have control over that temperature in the car, how long would it hold your attention? You forget about it because you can't do anything about it. I mean, if you're smart. Most of us, and most of the time, none of us about it. They really should turn off the air conditioner in this room. It's cold. But we can't fix it, so we can't reach for it to fix it, So that's, one of the differences is, that, so if you have lots of resources, one of our disadvantages is that it keeps us in sort of a constant state of discontentment because we can constantly try to change it. We can constantly try to get something better to eat, something more tasty to eat, something that has, whatever it is we're seeking, And then we go, oh, this technology, good grief, it's taped together. Surely we can find something better than that. And then, of course, you do. And then how long does that last? Not long. It's unbelievably impermanent, So it's like I've gotten to the point where if I have something new, you want to just scratch it, just so you can get over it. Because, because you waste so much time protecting it. This is the other thing about attachment. Suddenly you have to protect it, guard it against other covetous eyes, this kind of thing. We have, we really guard it. And what does that do? It's fear-based. It closes your, it's like, all right, the fortress is shutting down. I'm sorry, you can't get in, So we just, this is how we get. I'm exaggerating it, except that this is actually what we're doing. We kind of keep ourselves, because what's the main thing we're protecting? Ourselves. So, we do exactly the opposite from what's likely to have successful, harmonious relationships. We keep the guard of the heart. It's like, it's mine. No, I'm sorry, I can't share. Yeah.
Is bodhicitta essential to happiness? And if so, how does that work?
Let's just have a off the cuff a moment of bodhicitta. So what is bodhicitta?
Putting your heart and mind together and extending compassion.
So that's not what bodhicitta is.
Oh,
Okay, so bodhicitta is defined as the wish to become enlightened for the benefit of all sentient beings. So you want to become a Buddha because it is the most effective way to have the knowledge of exactly what would help others. Okay. So compassion is like our basis for that. The fact that we all can generate compassion for something, that we all can love something at some point, these are what the Buddha said are our proof that we have the capacity to love everything, have compassion for everything. So this is the good news. So how can compassion help? Well, we're talking about attachment. So if you're attached to having things go smoothly, so like say you have a big meeting this afternoon and you need to get all these other things done and you want it all to go smoothly and you want to get there, but then somebody comes in and it's an emergency and they need you. Okay, and that's going to throw off the whole schedule, all that kind of stuff. So if you're attached to your schedule, what might you do? Put them off. Okay? So you can't put them off.
Get irritated.
Get irritated.
I know the answers on this one for a reason.
Yeah, and where does your mind go? Where does the focus go? Are you focused on the person that needs your help? Are you focused on the obstacle this person represents to you? Whereas if you're cultivating compassion, when that person comes in, your focus becomes their suffering. So you can let go of that your schedule, because you're not attached to it. Oh, well, life happens. So instead, you allow this capacity for compassion to arise and focus on the suffering person in front of you. One of the things I really appreciated about Stephen Covey, y'all remember the 7 habits of whatever? Yeah, whatever. Long title. Anyway, but one of the things he said is you can't schedule people. You can be very organized, and it's helpful to be organized. It's helpful to have schedules. It's helpful to plan. I mean, they came up with the Franklin Covey planner or something, But what you cannot do if you want what is important to you, this is the key. We talk about it all the time. Motivation. What's really important to you? What do you really want to get out of your day? What, at the end of your life, what do you want to look back on? Successful meetings or helping that suffering person that just walked into the room? We can't schedule people. But if we're very attached to an outcome, it blinds us to even being able to, make that connection with someone else. Our self-interest gets in the way. Because attachment's all about self-interest. Attachment is, yes, I love you as long as you love me back. I'm not going to love you if it's not about me. Yeah.
Yeah, it occurs to me as you're talking that it seems like we're attached to our expectations of how things should be for you in particular, down to a stoplight.
Yes.
And then when that does it, and so if the light is green and you actually get through it, you're happy. If the light is red and you didn't get through it, then you're unhappy.
Yeah, you're explaining my drive to work. Yeah.
Pissed off.
Yeah.
So I mean, you could take that into relationships.
It's all the way.
It's the same thing.
It's the same habit of mind. This is why we can change it. Because it's not dependent on the stoplight. It's dependent on your response to the stoplight. And we carry this habit. So if you notice that you have this habit of being annoyed at even things like the stoplight, what is the likelihood that you let your agenda get in the way of everything else that happens through the day? Because you're practicing it all the time. I'm really just keen on trying to control my computer or any technology in front of me, and if, I'm an impatient person to begin with. And so one of the mistakes I've made in my life is always getting, well, not always, but, let's get it. Oh, I'm so happy when it's faster. So what does that do? It addicts me to speed. And of course, I don't just leave, well, that's not good enough. Can't you get even faster than that? It's just, it feeds this insane attachment to things happening quickly. So it doesn't help. I'm better off with and I have lots of them, broken appliances and not replacing them. Okay, hear me, director. So, no new toys for this one. Listen, this is the thing. So what we want to recognize is we have these themes because of our mind. That our habits of mind arise with the stoplight, they arise with the coworker, they arise with our partners, they arise with, everything. Our habits of aversion, same thing. Our habits of indifference, same thing. So we need to look at whether or not these habits of mind are working in our favor or not. And so one thing is to get familiar with like the difference between love and attachment. And most parents really understand the struggle when it's time for the kids to start making some of their own decisions, or then when they move out of the house and they have their whole life to make decisions about, and it's no longer any business of yours, that pull, the attachment is wanting to control it. Let's control their choices, and then of course it has a benefit when they're little and they need you to make those choices. Yes. Light bulb. So it's this recognition that this trying to control it isn't necessary. You can change that. It's a habit. Why isn't it? One reason it's not necessary is it doesn't work. Can you control it? Can you protect your children from everything? No, the tragedy is we can't. Resisting that truth is a problem. Like Pat was saying, we need to accept the reality. We can help. When children are little and you're helping them develop skills they'll need in the world, So, but there's, we can't control. That's true of our own lives. We can't control what's happening. We can control our response to it. And so the way to be able to develop more skillful responses is to really become very sharp at noticing when something's creeping in that's going to distort your point of view. So recognizing when self-interest is getting in the way, or even just there, so that you can go, okay, if I take myself out of this, how does this situation look? And you practice that. Okay, I'm going to take myself. I know I really want this to happen, so I'm going to keep trying to, look at it, so that we can see other possibilities. So we can see that all the things that arise from that attachment, this clinginess, this protection from loss, all of those things distort how we interact. So we're not necessarily honest in our communications with partners because we have an agenda, as opposed to really wanting a healthy, good, relationship that's good for both of you. You just don't want to lose them. So you distort things. And then there's no chance because you're not being accurate in your communication with yourself, probably first, and then others. So this is how it becomes, it's an insidious habit. It really does cloud so much of our moment-to-moment mind, because in the little small moments, it's the stoplight. It's, whether the coffee's cold, whether you get a morning break, whatever it is you're attached to. The more we can stay open to, what is, not what we want it to be, this expectation thing, recognizing that we have expectations, recognizing the reason we're shocked that, our partner's not there when we think they're going to be there. We can just assume, that something's come up and not panic. I don't know, and be comfortable with, I don't know. be trusting that this doesn't mean they're never coming back. May mean that they're never coming back, but there's no reason to jump to that conclusion. It's just staying open. Oh, okay. So, how best can I use our time? One of the great things about learning how to meditate is you never have to wait again. You can always go back to your breath. People don't know what you're doing. I mean, you can do it in crowded airports. You can just work on your mind. Not work on, tapping your fingers to the rhythm of something, of your impatient heart. So, you had your hand up. Did you have something? Okay. So, yes, Pat.
It seems like, and we've talked about this, you've talked about this before, this self idea. It seems like everything that gets bounced has to go through me and has to be approved. And I think, like we're talking about, like transcending this self and getting getting away from it.
If we can transcend the self-cherishing self, we don't have any problems.
It's getting there. You can't skip steps. It's like, because what happens is, we can misunderstand what it means to say that we grasp at a sense of self that's not accurate. Because it's not about developing indifference. It's not about, just detaching from the world and being able to whatever. It's really about engaging with the world from the point of view of others instead of from yourself. Right now, what we cherish is, what we think is beneficial to ourselves. And what we want to do is reorient our habits to really thinking about others. Yeah.
I had this discussion with my daughter a lot. She'll write an email to somebody or a text to somebody, and then they won't answer it back. And it happens to me too. And then you right away start thinking, is it something I said or did? Is it my fault or they just don't want to talk to me? And then I try to turn it around and say, well, maybe they're just busy.
Maybe they have a life.
Maybe they have a life, or it's not something you did, so you have to blame yourself. It's like you hurt yourself that way a lot.
Yeah. And one of that in this, it's like what Pat's saying about this idea, if we can transcend the sense of self. Well, one way to start that process is recognizing that it's not all about you. That's something teenagers really have to work on, is that, it's like you're so worried about, oh, what do they think of me? And they haven't thought of you at all. This is the reality because we're all so self-cherishing. We also have all these good qualities. So it's not just that we're, not worth knowing in the first place. It isn't that. It's that we had misaligned our focus. We're just, if we weren't so self-cherishing, all our good qualities would shine. The self-cherishing gets in the way, because we have all those good qualities of patience, kindness, compassion, love, generosity. What gets in the way is this sense of what we have to protect, what we have, our agenda, what we have to get, what we have to, this constant focus on what does it mean in reference to me? That is an obstacle to actually being able to be interconnected and enjoy, what's enjoyable and, that kind of thing. Instead, we're so busy, how many people, when they're eating a delicious dessert, somewhere in the middle of it, forget all about the delicious dessert and they're thinking about, ooh, should I take one home with me? Or how can I, I'd like to make this a regular visit, And so meanwhile, you don't experience the last half of the dessert.
at all. I mean, it's in your mouth. You're going to have the calories. You're going to have all the consequences of it, but you're not actually present for it because you moved on to grasping it. Wow, where's the recipe? I want more, kind of thing. I mean, this is, a ridiculous example, except my mind goes there. But it's, it's this, we need to recognize that we're doing this constantly. If we don't like a situation, our mind just gets caught up in that agenda of getting away from it instead of trying to be with it. So it's like when you're involved with a conversation that you just either think it's not necessary to have it, or it's uncomfortable, or it's scary even, you're not listening to it. You're caught up in this wheel of, oh, what's this mean? What is this data? You're not even listening anymore because something, somewhere, maybe even you brought it into the conversation because the previous conversation. So, but something hooked you and you started to go into that protect, mode, and you shielded yourself from the interaction. So how skillful is that? Does that really help us? That's really the question. This is what's ironic. Is here we're really all concerned about, how does this benefit me or harm me or, serve me or whatever. And then we get in our way, so we don't actually have the experience at all. I mean, you might be talking to somebody who can solve, your biggest problem, who has a solution, but you've decided you don't want to listen to them. So, but I mean, we really need to understand that we get in our own way. So recognizing that there are all these conditions that make it easy to fall into this habit. We have, what is it called? Stereoscopic vision. And where are we?
Mono.
We're smack in the center. I am the center of the universe. I'm sorry. Every moment of my eyesight tells me that. Same with our ears. So that's a condition that feeds this sense of, I'm the most important person in the room. Everybody's thinking about me. All the looks in the room have something to do with me. Especially, so this is something we need to recognize is meaningless. That it actually is not providing you any correct information, this idea that, if I walk into the room, that somehow, it matters. I hate to make it so minimized. Oh. But if we're easily hurt by other people's responses to us, if we feel like they don't pay enough attention or they're, hey, you didn't even say hello this morning when I walked in a room. We need to recognize why we're doing that. It's coming from this misunderstanding about how we are in relation to everything else. Everybody has their own little world operating. And unfortunately, we think they're separate worlds when they're not. But so we need to recognize that in all likelihood, we haven't entered their view at all. Well, because when you think about it, the real easy way to see this is to think if you noticed anything about them other than whether they treated you well or not. Then you start to realize, why do you think they're so different from you? If you're not noticing anything, about anybody else. Why do you think they're noticing you? You know, we need to really recognize that our orientation doesn't serve us well. You know, this constant thought about what does this mean to me? What does this mean about me? What does this mean? You know, this constant putting everything in relation to you is not a very effective way to interact, because it's not about interacting at all. You know, is that making sense at all? Pat, what do you think?
Why is it not interacting?
Because you're not interacting. You're actually just reacting. You're not including them in the picture. You know, we need to recognize this interdependence, you know, the interconnectedness, that all these worlds that we have collide frequently are actually non-existent. There really aren't 7 billion worlds. You know, that all of our, you know, it's a much more fluid than that. And the more we can take the focus, you know, off this central point, you know, the more we can let those other 7 billion worlds come into ours. You know, because it's just an illusion that we're separate. You know, we look separate. That's another condition that feeds this idea. You know, it looks like there's lots of space in between us. When if we look at it atomically, we discover that wasn't true. You know, we're swapping and sharing, you know, worry about germs, good grief, we're giving each other's atoms. So, yeah.
I find it extends in time to, like, when you're dealing with somebody that you had a history with, your memory you take as a given. When, even if you were both there, didn't necessarily have a meeting of the mind and didn't treat things, or didn't have the same experience.
You don't have the same experience. This is kind of important to remember that, you know, it's true that because we're in, you know, like none of us are seeing the same thing in this room. You know, not, you know, we can get all into the, you know, the way I see color is different from the way you color, but you don't even have to go that far. It's just literally because of a different point of view. We're all sitting in different places. We're all looking in different directions. All of that gives us a different view. Our experience, what's important to us, gives us a different view. You know, what we're attracted to gives us a different view. So if you're attracted to the colors in the room, you might find the room pleasant. If you don't like the colors in the room, you might find the room unpleasant. If you're cold natured, you might find the room too cold. If you're hot natured, you might find the room not cold enough. You know, that this is all influencing our experience. And a lot of it is our habits of mind. You know, so if you have the habit of mind of noticing, you know, people's facial expressions, and you know, you draw conclusions from that. So maybe you see someone's facial expression, you think, you know, it's hard to make these things up. So, you know, we just need to understand that we can choose better how we're responding. And one thing to practice is just being open. You know, recognizing before you walk into a situation all the different things that you expect. You know, what are your assumptions about what's going to happen? How will that color the way you respond to it? You know, start taking, you know, because if we're talking about situations that bring us some suffering, you know, that we find challenging or difficult, or, you know, and we really like it to be different because we're attached to it being different, you know, then we need to recognize that we're bringing in an energy with us to those situations every single time that may not be working for us, that may turn out to be unskillful habits. if we look more carefully, if we keep ourselves more open. So instead of jumping in with our body and speech, we kind of sit back in our mind and observe, recognize our little ideas that we have before the fact and see if we can set them aside and see what actually, to the best of our ability, happens. And so the less we are self-focused about, how is this going to go for me, the more we can stay open. So it's like, for me, one of the easiest scenarios is like when you go for a family visit, so for a holiday or for a Sunday dinner or something. And, it's so easy with family to have really very strong notions of how everybody's going to act. How they're going to look, what they're going to wear. I mean, you just sort of like feel like you could, create a picture postcard that will be accurate of what the situation will be like, And if we don't like the situation, that's not helping us. There's no chance for something different to happen because we've already decided what's going to happen. So we're setting ourselves up to be disappointed again. And it has absolutely nothing to do with what actually happens. The decision was made before you got there. And our minds are really powerful. We can see things that aren't there. We can remember things that never happened. Because we've told these stories to ourselves again and again and again, and we just believe them. Oh, he always says this. And then somebody goes, well, they didn't do that today. You're going, oh, I'm sure he did. You probably just missed it. Can't win. Have you ever changed and gone home and then tried to get your siblings to see that you changed? Good luck. But this is what we do. So we need to recognize that it's not skillful. That's the key, is understanding that this just perpetuates the storyline that we've created. There's no way to find out if it can change or if it's different or if we're just wrong, whatever, because we're not open to it. We've already decided. This is another way we try to protect ourselves that doesn't work. Because we're just believing in a false story. It's just made up. So recognizing that just like we make up stories about everybody else, we kind of pigeonhole people, we just, this helps us, well, I don't think it helps us at all. But anyway, so I'll just scratch that sentence. You can talk about prototypes, that it helps us remember things, but not accurately, too much to the, dismay of all the police detectives on TV anyway. So, but like Pat was saying, so this self, that this, just like we create these images of everybody else, we've also got a self-image, right? What's it based on? Perception of what?
What others think of us and how we interpret our experience.
Mm-hmm. So what others think of us and how we interpret our experience, our own experience. And what's that based on, do you think? Well, we're just talking about how we create stories.
Well, I want to say karma, but I'm not sure.
And so what we have to recognize is just like we make stories up about other people, we make them up about ourselves. We pigeonhole ourselves.
The reality we create.
I'm sorry?
It's the reality we create.
It's the reality we create, which means it's not reality. It means we are great fiction writers. Also,
it implies somehow we're static, that we don't change. When we change all the time. You know, I mean, to think of it in very simple ways, what we may want to eat today, we may not want to eat tomorrow. You know, we're constantly changing. And how we respond can change. We don't have to respond in some way. We've told ourselves that's who we are. I can't do anything about it. I'm stuck here. That's what we do with our friends, our family, particularly our family. We think, oh, well, that's who they are. Huh. You know, when newcomers come into the family, you know, someone gets married or someone has kids, you know, and then they're like, you know, oh, good luck. Because they seem to have an optimistic view of your family. So, you know, but we say, you know, sorry, I know them. So this way we have of creating a fixed, permanent sense of everybody else's self, of our own self, is a total fabrication of the mind. It is not true. And our attachment to those opinions causes problems because we don't see when someone's changed. We don't see that someone's responding in a different way. We just think they're criticizing me again. We don't notice because we're playing out a storyline we've already written. You know? And so that gets in our way. You know?
When we get familiar with somebody and we think we know them, it's not a
Think
correct
again.
assumption.
What do we really know?
We were thinking about that.
Yes. We can know what's going on in our mind because we're present for that. We can't know what's in somebody else's mind because we're not present for that. We can't read their mind. We can read their body language if they're talking the same language we do. Go into a multicultural room with people from lots of different countries, you're going to misread the body language if you think their body language is the same as your body language. Because it's not.
So if you strip away all the faults and left with just the essential,
What's the essential?
well, I'm wondering if what's left is unique or if it's identical if everybody's identical.
Well, that's an interesting question. According to Buddhism, nothing has a nature that is its nature. That if things had a nature that was the essence, that, you know, like if I had a Tendron essence, then I wouldn't need the name Tendron. You'd know who I was. Because I would radiate that. You know, Tendron's just a name I'm giving to this particular body and mind. I can even give it, you know, somebody else gave me the name Tendron, and that's, you know, that's the label for this body and mind. So what we carry from moment of mind to the next moment of mind are our habits, our tendencies, you know, our memories, you know. So we respond from those kinds of places. When you strip it down, according to Buddhism, what is the essence is our Buddha nature. We have the potential to correct all mistaken states of mind and abandon all incorrect states of mind. And like I said, let your good qualities shine. You know, it's this. So, but is that permanent? No, nothing's permanent. Everything is impermanent. But what doesn't cease is our mind. So each moment of mind gives rise to the next moment of mind, gives rise to the next moment of mind. You die, it gives rise to the next moment of mind. In the Bardo,
You leave the Bardo, get your eyes to the next moment of mind in your future life. So in that sense, there's something that continues, but there's no fixed anything to it. It's just mind. So our habits of mind are very, very important. So if we have the habit of anger, the likelihood of us responding in anger is going to be pretty high to whatever situation. So it's not that there's, so you could say, in one way, you can say our essence is our Buddha nature, which just really means that we can change and that we have the basis of good qualities. We have all of it. We don't have to cultivate anything new. You know, it's not like none of us know how to be kind, patient, you know, that there's, oh, I'm sorry, I'm missing that entirely from my repertoire, you know, of abilities. We're not missing any. We just need to take the good qualities and, create habits that help enhance those so that we practice them more and more often. And then our mistaken states of mind, we need to correct them. We need to recognize, oh, it's not even logical. Maybe that's, maybe I should look at this differently, and start trying to change, our habits of our mistaken states of mind, like anger, Anger is a distortion of the negative qualities of the situation.
So most Western thought says that self-improvement is additive, right? If I want to improve myself, I run out and get a self-improvement book, or I take a class and gain more knowledge.
Okay.
It sounds like you're saying that self-improvement in Buddhism is subtractive. You get rid of the mistaken states of mind. You get rid of the...
Well, you just correct them. When you correct them, then you have a different state of mind.
That the core of what we are that exists in us is fundamentally
impermanent. There is no core that is
the Buddha nature is
the fact that we're changeable. The evidence that we're changeable in a good direction is that we have all the good qualities and good. See, this is the fundamental basis, is that qualities like love that are free from attachment, that really is just the sincere wish that someone be happy, with no agenda of your own. It's just this wish for those to be, is a correct state of mind in Buddhism. There's no mistake in that. That's there's nothing wrong with everybody being happy. The mind that wants to kill is an incorrect state of mind, because we think in the moment of killing that somehow our life will be better because we've killed. Now, let's not talk about wars or something. Let's just, some simple scenario. We think we need to get rid of this enemy. And so we'll just kill this enemy because then they're gone. What happens when we kill one enemy? We find a new one. There'll be another one comes along that wants what you want, So whatever you were trying to protect is still,
Or he has 10 cousins.
Or he has 10 cousins. Yes. So those are just, if you think that killing all your enemies is the way to have no enemies, the Buddha just said that's a mistake. It's not true. So you need to correct that mind that thinks that killing is a solution, because it's not a solution. Okay, so it's a process of that, of recognizing, oh, my conclusion is incorrect. So maybe I need to look again, and just keep, refining this. Now, also, that the more we develop concentration and are able to really hold whatever object we're reflecting on, like say anger, really being able to understand what we believe about anger, whether it's true or not, all those kinds of things. Our ability to focus on that, without distraction, and can eventually lead to an experience of
its inaccuracy so that you let it go. You no longer think it serves any purpose at all, and it doesn't arise. So basically, though, since we have so many disturbing states of mind, we can't just go one. Okay, so let's now look at belligerent. That, the way to do it is to start looking at the way things appear to us, and do we have that right? Well, right now, even though intellectually we understand that things are impermanent, they change, that nothing lasts forever, blah, 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 all those stuff, we get that in with our mouths, blah, 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 blah. But our experience of that, it shows that we don't really believe it. We're shocked when we break something. We drop it and it breaks, and we're like, wow, how'd that happen? Well, because it's breakable. That's it, it breaks. You lose a relationship, there are all sorts of clues that we hold things to exist in a way that they don't. And we operate from that point of view. So we get mad if something breaks. We get, we respond in a way that doesn't increase our peacefulness. So it's so we start to look at, wow, do I generalize this to everything? Do I really hold everything to remain the same? Do I think that I'm not gonna reach that day where finally it's my turn to die? So we just have to understand that all this desire to hold on is fruitless fatigue. I read it in one of the sutras. Fruitless fatigue. You can keep wasting all your energy trying to hold on, but it's not going to work. So it's this, really recognizing that our misunderstanding or sometimes it's as simple as insistence that it's different is a problem. We're wasting our energy on it. That could be better spent handling, being able to just be open to, so this is what it is today, this moment. And recognize, it will change. So if it's a good moment, it's going to change. If it's a bad moment, it's going to change. No reason to get all fussed. It will change. So it's, to be able to be a little more even as opposed to the roller coaster of, well, it's going to change now. I don't like this, so it must change now. I don't like this, it must change now. And then the other mistake, I like this, more. So, all right. So take a moment to just introduce yourselves to each other so we can switch from being strangers to friends. Just like that.
Jane, I'm Linda. Nice to meet you. How's it going?
Hi, I'm Dudley.
I'm Linda. Nice to
Dudley.
meet you.
Nice to meet you. Hi,
I'm Jade. Nice to
Dudley.
meet you. I'm Peter Francesca. Nice to meet you.
Anthony.
Yeah, well, I can see how this all applies to many of the things that we're working on. Hey, you know what? That's okay.
You come to this one about
Welcome back. It's fun, isn't it? Okay, we only have a few minutes left, so I want to talk about how do we use this? How do we work with this information? So one of the things you can do, like this week, just notice if a sense of craving arises, you know, and well, let's not try. Let's hopefully that doesn't arise, but just see what it does to the mind. You know, just kind of notice that it's agitating, that it's not pleasant. You know, that it feels like there's something missing that you need to fill, and then look at the object that you're craving, and really look at it. Just kind of let yourself go. Oh, I have to have this right now. I have to spend one moment of mental energy. You know, really look at, you know, that it's, you know, it's also impermanent, that it's not true that if you have it, you'll necessarily be happy, that there'd be moments in your life, you know, that even if you got this right in this moment, that you wouldn't even notice it because you were very focused on something else, you know? So you want to see it. Do you really want your mind being dragged away by this kind of craving, this kind of, you know, and do you even want to fall for it? You know, do you want, like, if that craving for a cigarette arises, you know, do you want to fall for it, or do you want to recognize, oh, great, yeah, let's kill myself, you know, let's take another 17 years to try to quit smoking, you know, whatever. I mean, you know, so we have to really recognize the faults of whatever we're exaggerating. You know, we've taken something that might be momentarily enjoyable and made it into something it can't possibly be. You know, it cannot be the, you know, fill that hole. It just can't be that. So, you know, you just, you know, you notice what kind of sensations are in the body and mind. Is there an edge now? You know, because your attention is now going towards how can I get that? You know, just really just kind of look and see how. You know, then it shifts, of course. It won't hold your attention all day. Something else will take its place. So you want to see. But when it does arise, just notice, ooh, this actually isn't very pleasant to have this yearning for something that I can't just grab, you know. And that's not a good habit to a mind. You know, it's just, you know, it's like, oh, you might have a nice thought about, oh, that would taste good, and just let it go. You know, but, you know, it's okay. The thought arises. We don't have to grasp after it. It makes us much more likely when we actually have something, some object that we like, that we enjoy it while it's there, instead of grasping after the next moment and trying, you know, how can I have more of it, whatever. So we really want to notice, you know, we might even want to notice the condition in which it arises. You know, are we bored? You know, are we trying to distract ourselves from something we're not liking at the moment by daydreaming about something else? Is that a skillful habit to have? So you want to explore these things. Is that useful? You know, is daydreaming useful? What is it? What drawback does daydreaming have?
It's a waste of time.
Well, yeah, it's a waste of time.
Distraction.
It's a distraction. But what?
You miss what's going on. The explanation.
Takes you away from where you actually really are.
Well, and is it true? Is it achievable? is it a setup for disappointment when it doesn't happen? You know, we really need to look, and we spend a lot of time in a, oh, if only kind of mind, if we're setting ourselves up to be dissatisfied. You know, so because then when we fight, oh, I can't wait till I get home. It'll be so nice because blah, 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 blah. And then you get home and you have this story you've created, and it's not like that. My father used to come home and go, I just want to come into a happy house. You know, well, good luck. You've got teenagers. What are you expecting? So, you know, we just have to recognize that sometimes our daydreaming is feeding, you know, a story that can't happen, and that will disappoint us. So it's not skillful, you know. So other people, instead of daydreaming, they worry. Like that's going to fix something. About fruitless fatigue. You know, you want to make a distinction between planning, problem solving, and worry. So that you can, you know, just set it aside. Well, I can't do anything about that right now. So set it aside because it will wear you down. So these are the kind, you know, so just notice. Okay, so at the beginning, we tried to set a positive intention for using our time today. And so, you know, feel good about, you know, you showed up. You said you were going to come, you showed up. You know, nobody snored loudly. So this is, you know, so your social graces are intact. But we want to feel really good about, you know, this is a moment to just pause and, you know, did good. Because most of the world is not spending their time like this. This is a very positive activity to spend some of your time in your busy week to think about, you know, what am I doing with my mind? Because our mind directs all of our actions. So trying to unpack what's going on in there, you know, like it's in a place, it's not in a place, but, you know, figure of speech, but you know, this really looking more deeply at what we actually have control over, and that's how we think. You know, that we can start to guide our mind, direct it in positive ways, and that this really benefits the world. You know, will benefit anybody that's around us. You know, for the rest of the day is going to benefit from the fact that we spend some time thinking about, you know, how can I remember, you know, not to just be led astray by these thoughts that arise. But some of them aren't skillful, and I don't want to listen to them. So what, according to Buddhism, positive activities bring positive results in the future. And so we just want to share them. You know, we want to, you know, make the wish that due to our efforts in this positive activity, that others will benefit. And so let's recite the prayer on page 244, 46, 46. Everybody good? May all beings everywhere, plagued by sufferings of body and mind, obtain an ocean of happiness and joy by virtue of my merits. May no living creature suffer, commit evil, or ever fall ill. May no one be afraid or belittled, with a mind weighed down by depression. May the blind see forms and the deaf hear sounds. May those whose bodies are worn with toil be restored on finding repose. May the naked find clothing, the hungry find food. May the thirsty find water and delicious drink. May the poor find wealth, those weak with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find hope, constant happiness, and prosperity. May there be timely rains and bountiful harvests. May all medicines be effective and wholesome prayers bear fruit. May all who are sick and well clearly be free from their ailments. Whatever diseases there are in the world, may they never occur again.
May the frightened cease to be afraid, and those bound be free. May the powerless find power, and make people think of benefiting each other. For as long as space remains, for as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I remain, to dispel the miseries of the world.
So Nicole, what are the announcements?
Oh, Thursdays had a meditate class, I know that one, our second session of that. Also, tomorrow is Jackie Keely's book club, and if you want to come and can read a chapter or two by tomorrow night, please grab a book on Lama Yeshe's life, death, and after death. There's copies out by the front desk. And then Saturday's workshop on the 22nd on understanding guilt and regret.
Understanding the difference. So we can quit being stuck in guilt and move forward.
To regret.
Yeah. That regret doesn't keep you stuck. Regret is a very active, I'm going to do this differently in the future. Guilt is, I'm stuck where I am, can't change.
So please join us.
So now you don't have to come.
We'll spend 4 hours going into depth in these two topics.
And with some skills training.
From 1 to 5 p.m. on Saturday, the 22nd. That's $25 for everyone or $15 for members. And then also 1 month from now is the animal blessing, our yearly animal blessing, and liberation at Quiet Waters Park. So we are looking
What's the date?
What's the date on that?
That is October 6th.
And that's a day Quiet River Parks also has some big animal thing going on. Because this is the time of year that St. Francis of Assisi, I can't remember what day it is, but there are always activities around it because of his care of other living beings other than humans. So it's a tradition. And so we also, the Buddhist, also has a tradition about blessing animals for their happy lives.
And that will be at 9:30 a.m. And we are looking for volunteers for that. So please see myself or Marianne. Just give me your contact information. We'll get back to you with the different ways to help. And I just wanted to say thank you all so much for coming. Because it's with you being here that we are here, and for your generosity of showing up and your time and our dear volunteers and your donations. So
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Yes. Without you, there is no community. Without you, there's no center. There's no point. And without your dollars, it'd be no air conditioning. So, keep those things in mind.
Yes,
Could you explain what that animal liberation is?
Well, it's really an animal blessing where you bring your pets and we do mantras and things that the Buddha taught will help them have good future rebirths so that they're not reborn again, with physical support for their minds that's not particularly skillful. So, but of course I know your pets are having a really good life, but they can't control their craving. So it's all about, and they will have a human rebirth in the future. We just want to create the cause that they have a good one and, kind of bless their minds. So, is that what you need, Vicki? Or
Well, I just thought some people might not know.
no, but is there something else you want to add to that?
No.
Okay.
What kind of volunteer activities?
Well, we'll need people to help set up. So we set up a big, beautiful altar, and we need people for cleanup, and then we may need someone with a bigger car to help bring some stuff because we bring a lot of the stuff from here.
So we basically set up an altar that all the pets can walk around with their owner's help. Because even just being, the teachings say that just being, going around holding up our statues and our stupas and things are filled with lots of prayers and lots of, holy things so that can create the cause for them to meet the teachings in the future. And like it's one of those things, like can't hurt. So,
Yeah, a bunch of different little things. I'm just now starting to get my list for that, so I don't have them quite ready, but I will the next few days.
so thank you. Yeah, Mary Ann.
We liberated animals.
Are we this
And we
year?
will liberate some worms as well.
Okay, so we liberated
worms.
worms that are destined for the fishing hooks. So, you know, to at least, you know, it doesn't save all the worms, but, you know, those worms at least have freedom from hooks and being
Right.
snapped up by a fish. So we do that too. And it's good for the ground in the park. So, okay, wonderful.
Thank you.
Have a great Sunday.
You